Hi, I'm Katie, and you're listening to Best Be Talking.
Hey, I'm Brian. My last name is Best, and I'm talking, so let's be talking. Welcome to our show.
Welcome, episode one of a brand new tech podcast.
You know, Katie, I'm going to be honest with the listeners. I'm always going to be honest with anybody who's watching or listening to this. I did not want to do this at first. Like every tech bro has a podcast, right? I'm like, I don't want to. I don't know what everybody zigs. I kind of zag just naturally. It's not something I do to be contrarian or it's just kind of how things are. So I hated this idea,
Mhm.
but like enough people were like, you should do this thing. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
we'll give it a shot. When you were on board, it was like, all right, let's do this. Let's see how it goes.
you know what? I think people will. I think over the decades of years of business that you have been, oh my gosh, I'm going to restart that. Over the 20 plus years that you have been in business, you have had so much time to get so much knowledge that I think will be beneficial to not only companies that have been operating for years without the safety nets and the services and the information that you provide, but additionally, all the new businesses that are coming up in the age of advancing technology will be able to be better prepared for anything that might happen. So I'm on board. I think you got great insight and I think you're kind of funny. So
Well, I appreciate that, Katie. So, like, I don't remember we met in a we were in the Kansas City Business Strategy Group, so we're obviously both out of the Kansas City area. Go Chiefs! We're in that group. My mentor, I imagine yours as well, Mr. David Boehm, put that
mm-hmm.
together a few years ago, and it's been a game changer for my business. So obviously, meeting folks like you, getting to know different members of the group. So my business, obviously technology, and like you said, we're in our 25th year now. We started in eh, October or November, I'm not sure which at this point, in 1999,
When I was
and
two.
that's messed up. I would say like we have it definitely feels more like big brother, little sister to me. And that's because my
Yeah.
kids are all, my oldest child is like a decade younger than you. Like they're all little kids still. Like he's a
Yeah.
teenager, but the other two are like 11 and 9. They're like, that doesn't feel like that to me.
Yeah.
You were
But
two when
it's
I
a
started
fun
this business. That's
dynamic.
good. Yeah, for
Yeah, it's like
sure.
it's good because we have such differing like perspectives of the world at this point because of just the areas in which we grew up and the way that we grew up, but additionally the areas in which we are able to be like united on and the way that we agree on things, I think is also beneficial. Like it adds enough to where it's like a conversation without it being an echo chamber, which I think a lot of like podcasts with people in similar backgrounds and age ranges sort of fall into at times without even meaning to.
Oh, that's an interesting insight. I hadn't really thought of that, but yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and so later on, the no echo chamber, we're gonna have to fight, right? I'll fight you.
Oh, absolutely. We're
Uh,
going to get into heated arguments. We're going to be calling each other's names. So look forward to that.
yeah, don't do that. People want drama, they want conflict. Give them what they want. We're
Absolutely.
all in it for the ratings.
Yeah. Clip that. Clip that.
Yeah, click. Be sure to click more. We want those sponsorships. How are we gonna get sponsorships for this thing if we don't fight and cause drama?
Yeah.
Oh,
Controversial.
too funny, too funny. Tell me about Enchanted Dawn. Tell me about your business. Tell me about what you're doing and give me just like the quick elevator pitch.
Yeah, so Enchanted Dawn is a content marketing agency. So we're still relatively small but mighty in power. That's one of the reasons why you and I partnered together is because you have the informational background, whereas I have like the content creation, podcast marketing background. And so we help our clients be able to tell their brand stories fluidly to their target audience by honing in on their unique positioning and just really ensuring that it's clearly communicated in a fun and authentic way.
Well, you're nailing it here. I tell you, this is
Mhm.
this is a good idea. It doesn't get more authentic than just putting me unscripted on a camera. In fact, this could go
Dangerous
horribly
too.
off the rails. Keep me reeled in, okay? Well, that's awesome. So obviously we titled it Best Be Talking, and it'll be technology based. We'll be, talking about my areas of where I work, information technology for small businesses, cybersecurity. That's
Hmm.
super hot right now because like the
Oh
bad
yeah.
guys are just everywhere and they're getting smarter and better. And it's really hard for everybody to keep up. So we'll definitely be talking a lot about that. Small elevator pitch for Best Max, my company of almost 25 years now. We do exactly that, B2B IT, we'll outsource soup to nuts, everything from virtual CIO all the way down to basic help desk and maintenance type work. We are our client's IT department. We're on your team, just
Hmm.
not on your payroll. And then we'll branch out to other smaller versions of that. So if we get a really tiny business that maybe handles their day to day okay, but is worried about those cyber criminals, we can help out with our Best Be Safe package. Or if we get on the opposite end, we meet a CTO who needs some help with something, usually with like Apple devices, because we're really good at Mac, iPad, iPhone. That's our history. We can come in and make that the Mac management and the iPad management and their organization turnkey. Like we'll just take care of it all. They don't have to train their staff. Their people can come to us for help desk. We'll onboard, offboard, but we'll also make sure that they are staying compliant with the company policies and getting those things in
Yeah.
play. So that's
Well,
my little
and
short deal.
yeah, and all that is great. And I think what is going to be really unique and interesting about the way that you present things is the fact that obviously your business is positioned to be more B2B, but because cybersecurity and tech issues are so prevalent in not only just businesses, but also just in people's personal lives, I'm sure that there's going to be information that is very like transferable between the two. So if you
Oh
don't
yeah.
have a business, it doesn't mean that you can't listen or this isn't for you, because I'm sure that there will be things that you would want to know and stay up to date on outside of just being in business. We're going to kind of touch on probably some things that come across people's emails, like how people get hacked, all that information. So
Yeah,
it's
and I hope
insightful.
the stuff that we talk about isn't just limited to, oh gosh, if you're not 50-person, 100-person business isn't relevant. Like you said, the stuff we're talking about should be relevant to just about anybody. So we
Yeah.
introduce not even just cybersecurity stuff. Sometimes our tech tips will be enough. We have a
Mm-hmm.
ton of them that are on my website. We'll pull up a bunch from there and from other sources and kind of talk through those. Yeah, there's I don't want to just sit here and blab for however long we blab on an episode. It really ought to be a fun and interesting use of somebody's time that they can enjoy it. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just two bets talking.
There you go. That's all it
Two
is.
best buds.
Why did you start your business? What drove you to want to start it?
So I was that kid that was always trying to figure out how to make money whenever I was little. Like I remember being 12 and selling bracelets out of my locker in like middle school to friends
No way.
because I just always kind of had that. And now it's kind of fun because I have a 6-year-old daughter. And one day she came home from school and she goes, Mommy, a girl in school was making products and she's going to sell them. And I was like, okay, like what kind of products? And
Six
she's like,
years old?
I don't know. Yeah, 6 years old. And so now my daughter is like, I want to make products. She's all about soaps. She really likes soaps at farmers markets. And so now we're like, it's like, okay, we're going to figure out a way to kind of feed into that energy without me going into like entrepreneurship mommy manager mode and being like, well, there's this that you got to take into consideration and what's going to be your ROI. And okay, I'll give you a small loan of $1 million. It's so funny. But
Great.
like, that's something that just kind of from a young age, I was really interested in. And so then I got up into high school and there weren't a lot of like business classes, but there was one in particular called Young Entrepreneurs. I grew up in Dodge City, Kansas, and so it's like one of those like weird high schools where like there's a lot of people, but because of the education system and the way that one kind of operated, there wasn't a lot of really good opportunities for you to find what you were interested in. So this wasn't the case for everyone, but I really enjoyed the youth entrepreneurship class. And then additionally, there was a floral class. And I remember freshman year going into a flower shop and asking if I could be that person that swept their floors. It's like that classic story of like, oh,
Nice.
I started by going in and sweeping floors as an unpaid intern. And that's what I did. I swept up the leaves, I washed out bud vases. So because I had that experience all throughout high school working at that flower shop, was taking floral design classes in high school and the youth entrepreneurship class, I slowly developed this love for flower shops. And then when I went to school for marketing, it was with the intent of opening up a flower shop. Well, I was young and dumb and ended up with child very young. And so I completely convinced myself that I couldn't run a business or start a business while also going to school and working full time. So I backed off of the marketing, got a degree in education, did that for a couple of years, realized I'm good at it. I don't want to do it for the rest of my life. So then forced pivot into pursuing that marketing degree that I originally wanted to go with and really was passionate about, and now have made a successful business off of that by really leading into what I care about.
Awesome.
So there's
Great story.
that.
That's so much of that resonates because it's I had not the same track, but I went to a relatively small school where I grew up in upstate New York. I'm actually was born here in the KC area, but that's where my family is from up there. Ironically, my wife was from here when we met, and I ended up back here, and
Oh,
I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else at this point. So I'm definitely Kansas City through and through, and I absolutely love it, everything about it. But the education bit, when I went to school, yeah, I ended up going to college. I went to college mostly because it was like, well, that's what you do when you graduate high school. You go to college.
yeah.
Okay.
No choice.
No, but I already knew at that point I was already really strong on the Apple Macintosh platform. I had been doing it for a number of years at that point, messing around with my own, helping out other people, helping out my school. My favorite thing in high school was getting called out of English class to go fix something on the computer. Like the
Oh yeah.
technology teacher Mr. Roy would call me up, call the whatever room I was in, say, "Could you send Brian up the technology wing?" I'd get down there and I'd have to mess with the machine to get it up and going.
Oh,
That would,
how do I copy and paste?
sign of things to come. I mean, he was smarter than he knew some of the basics. Usually, when I got called in, it was something really wacky was happening that needed fixing.
Okay.
I say that now. Now I look back at it, I'm like, was it really that wacky? I don't know. But
Yeah.
what am I going to college for? Well, in the early 90s, there was no such thing as IT, right? If you were in
Mhm.
computers, you were either an engineer and you were building the circuit boards, or you were a computer science guy and you were coding, you were making the application programs. I tried both tracks and didn't like either of them.
Okay.
And part of it was because of the requirements. Like the engineering track required a lot of science classes where I'm like, I already did this. Like I just got done with this in high school. Why am I paying for this and doing it again? And then
Mhm.
in the comp sci track, I'll never forget sitting in a computer lab one night trying to get this program to compile. It's due the next day. Typical, a
College.
procrastinator, right? Yeah, college. Oh, I'm cramming. I'll get it done. So 2 a.m. I'm sitting there trying to get this thing to compile. I've been at it for hours, can't get it to go. What the heck's going on? And some dude walks by me in the computer lab and goes, "You're missing a semicolon on line 8." I'm like, "Are you effing kidding me?" I punch this and it compiles. I'm like, "Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this the rest of my
Yeah.
life." Like, no way. So I was just directionless for a number of years after that. Didn't really know until finally I landed a gig with a local Apple reseller and service provider and convinced them to let me fix the Macs that came in, just like I did back
Hmm.
in school. And off we go. So when I met my wife, we came back here to Kansas City. She tried New York for a year. She hated it. That's a whole nother story.
Oh,
Um,
I'm done.
yeah, she's like, "Can we go back?" I'm like, "Yes, we can go. I'm ready for a change. Let's go." But got down here and just put on knew at that point, somewhere in there, I knew that I wanted to run my own business. I had seen enough. Really, honestly, Katie, what it came down to is I just had a lot of crappy bosses, and I had a couple of
Yeah.
really good ones. And the good ones I had actually ran the business. They were the business owners at that Apple shop.
Yeah.
And so I had a good sense of, okay, I could do it a lot like they're doing it. I could do some things different that I think might be better. I know I won't do anything those idiots did. And maybe I can make a go at this. So decided I'm going to try to start a business around supporting Apple devices. And this was 1999. Like I said, October, November, I can't remember which, but just put on a nice shirt and
Mhm.
tie, went around, started meeting people like in advertising and marketing. Like that was a really big vertical for Apple gear.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, just like, oh wow, yeah, can you come down here and deal with this? And one guy, I forget, Oswillie was like, oh man, have I got a deal for you? Like just
Yeah,
almost,
the
you know,
savior.
yeah, like, oh man, you hit the jackpot today. And here we are all these years later. So, but yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that we both were able to take those leaps of faith for ourselves because I know, I mean, just from our conversations, like you've had a unique sort of like family circumstances with your kids and medical issues. And I know I've had very similar with my daughter. And so it's nice to be able to have our own businesses that offer that flexibility for us to be able to not only be successful business owners, but also the parents that we really wanted to be able to be.
I love that you use the word flexibility because I think that's the real big thing that a small business like ours has over a much larger enterprise. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, I say this to employees and prospective employees I've had over the years. It's like, look, I might not be able to match their big salaries. When you have two jobs that are basically identical, one pays more, but kind of sucks, and the other one may pay a
Mm-hmm.
little less, but you get to feel like you're a part of something. You get, flexibility of being able to, if one of your kids needs something, you go home, you help your kids. You need to be trained up on something, you'll get trained up on something. We'll help you with that. Just all the intangibles that come with it. Like payroll needs to be like hygiene. It needs to be enough that you're getting all your bills paid, you feel clean. You're not like
Yeah.
bill collectors aren't calling you. You aren't worried about how am I going to make ends meet. Okay, all the ends are met, and you got some extra, so you can go out to eat. You can maybe buy a toy or two, something like that. Anything beyond that, it's like, okay, well, that's great. But now you start thinking about all those other things. Like, oh God, I'm killing
Yeah.
myself putting in, 20-hour work weeks, and nobody does that. But like, something like that. It's 20-hour. Scratch that. My math is
40
terrible,
hour.
dude. 40-hour, 20,
Part time's hard.
dude, 20-hour work weeks. Good God, I'm killing myself. Like you're
I
putting in these insane amount of hours. I, there were employees at one of the marketing agencies I supported in the past where I'd say to them, "You work harder than me, and I run my own business. Like you are killing yourself for this company."
Yeah,
Um,
it's like
yeah,
this is a job. You have life outside of that. And I mean, motherhood is one of those like really important things to me. It's kind of once I became a mom, it was actually a little bit of a path to self-identification that I didn't really have. And so, already, even though I don't have employees yet, I'm sort of in the groundwork of laying down those foundations to ensure that whenever I do, I'm able to onboard them and provide them the same flexibility and the same ability to be a successful, not even just parent, but like person. Because you need to have like a life outside of work. And so I want to make sure that, I am able to offer that while still maintaining like a functioning business. So slowly getting ducks in a row for that.
yeah, no, for sure, and I think you're doing it the right way. Piece of advice I've heard many times and kind of agree with is like, don't hire somebody until like you just can't function without that help. Like, delay it as long as you can because it's a big responsibility. Like, I look at
Yeah.
my business, I'm like, I've got right now it's four people, one of whom would probably be okay if things went south, but the rest kind of like they're dependent. Like, I had one employee at one point, well, he worked at Best Max, he got married and had 2 kids. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's an immense responsibility. Like their income now, his wife worked too, but like I felt like a huge, tremendous, like, oh my God, we have got to make this business work and be profitable, and
Yes.
rising tide lift all boats. We sign a big new contract. I need to be giving these guys raises. Like we've got to do this right, because that's, I've got my own family and that's the most important thing in the world to me. But the seeing him and his family, and even my guy David, who's been with me a decade now, like, okay, no
Mhm.
kids, but like, dude, that's his livelihood, that's his career.
Yeah.
Like, I I gotta be very respectful and treat that the how it deserves to be treated. It needs to
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
cherished. So yeah. Hey, you turn into a tech podcast and you got business stuff. It's not best be technical, it's best be talking. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so well, maybe we ought
Lots
to
of things to
pivot.
cover that all intertwine.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, hopefully at this point you got a good sense of who we are. Yeah, these people are interesting enough to listen to. So we do have some segments lined up that we're going to do every episode. We'll dive into those now, outside of our normal tech conversation. The one we'll start future episodes with is our tip of the week.
So, our tech tip of the week, where Brian goes and finds all of the best tips that, whether you are in business or just on a personal level, might be useful to your life. And once he shows us the tip, I then go in and give my rating, and he gives his from a different perspective and different background. And we'll see if they line up and if they're actually worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. So like the grizzled old tech veteran is not impressed by anything anymore, right? Even like Apple
Mhm.
has an event. Look, new iPads. Like, okay, whatever. I've been doing this for that
Just a
long.
different color.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So today's tip of the week, one right off my webpage. And so
Okay.
this is where we put a lot of our tips. You can go to bestmax.com. There's a little tips link right there. Not going to get all of our tips from here. We're going to source them from other places. But for this one, I thought was kind of a neat one. So you've got an image, you download it off the internet, or maybe you imported it from your iPhone or whatever, and it's on your Mac. It's sitting there on the desktop, but you need to convert it. You need to convert it to something
Mhm.
else. What do? Well, you go pay Adobe $1 bazillion a month, to get Photoshop. No, no, that's terrible. We don't like subscriptions. That's awful. Maybe we download some freeware. Maybe we download a shareware thing like Acorn. Great tool, love it, but does way more than just converting images. So that's a little overkill. All right, we'll do it right there in the Finder, because it's right there, and
Mhm.
you simply right click on the image. You'll get a menu item that, like you see here on the screen, lets you convert it, and you can downsize it, and change it to, a TIFF, a GIF. I'm not saying GIF, GIF. Yeah, controversy. Here it is. You want drama and ratings? GIF,
Uh-oh.
GIF. Change my mind.
Time to
All
fight.
right. Yeah, let's. So, but there you go. Simple. So, how's that strike you?
I give this a 10 out of 10, mostly
Really?
because I do website development. And one of the things that slows websites down the most is over like sized images. So the bigger your image size, the slower it's going to take to load, therefore slowing down your speed and impacting SEO results and this, that, and the other. So I actually do use this almost every single time I am building a website.
Oh wow. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was kind of middle of the road on it. Like maybe like a 5 or so. 'Cause I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's a short little thing, but yeah, I'm sure it could save some people if all you're doing is just converting from one format to another. It gets easy. Where
Mhm.
I think I could boost this up a little bit is on the command line. See, I love command line stuff. So as long as we're doing introductions here in our first episode, part of the reason I became a Mac guy, I told you, back in school, we had the little black and white 9-inch screen Mac, and It was
Yeah.
point and click, and everything else was typing. You were typing in like DOS, you were typing commands. Well, I'm still not a very good typist. And I had learned Hunt and Peck. They offered keyboarding classes on typewriters. I'm dating
Oh,
myself here.
wow.
Yeah. I didn't take them because by that point in time, I was already, really fast with my own one or two finger quasi typing method. And it was going to be harder to
Hmm.
unlearn that and learn the correct way to do it.
Yeah.
Again, zigging instead of zagging. But the irony is that here we are all these years later, and a lot, in fact, maybe even the majority of what I do on a day-to-day basis happens in the command line. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff you can do on these. Well, one of the things, let's say the same exact topic we're talking about, there's a command line called SIPS. And
Oh,
SIPS does
whoa.
the same sort of deal. It's you are changing images on the command line. But what's nice about this is I can do something like, let me clear this out. I could do, sips dash s, and maybe I want them all to be pings, right?
Okay.
Excuse me, s format ping, and then I can specify the name of the file. Maybe it's JPEG.
Hmm.
Out file.ping. And there you go. One line, boop, and it converts it for you. Just like, so a lot of
Oh,
what you see on Mac OS a lot of times, and probably on Windows too, is a GUI, a graphical interface like the one we just showed you on the web page, calling something small on the command line and doing the exact same thing. So generally speaking,
yeah.
when there is a GUI part, there's very likely a command line part. The command line part's nice for me and my team because we can do the command line completely behind the scenes without interrupting our client. So our
Yeah.
client is there tooling along, working, doing their job. We could call them and say, hey, can we get you off your computer for a few minutes while we remote control it and do it? Or
Hmm.
we just shell in behind the scenes. They have no idea we're there. We do this and we go back to their ticket and we mark it closed. And
That
we solve
is,
their problem without them even knowing we did it. So that takes this from a 5 to a 10 in my mind. But because
yeah.
also I can do stuff like this, I can say not just format ping one file, I can say every JPEG in this folder is now out and I want them to
Okay.
go to, a particular folder. And so I can do a mass conversion. So if you had like 100 JPEGs, this one line, bloop, now they're all pings.
Okay. Well, if you put it that way, now that is a lot cool. Okay. But that's what I think is really fun. So, I mean, I've grown up with computers. I remember being in the computer room of my grandparents' house, like doing like little CD-ROM games and stuff like that. But if you ask me, how does a computer do what it does, outside of telling you it's a mass of one and zeros, I could not go into anything. And so the fact, I've never once thought about the fact that every single time I go and like right click on something and I am selecting, convert images, I never thought about the fact that there is like a code going along with that to tell it what to do. I'm just like, no, it's wizardry. I'm a magician. I can do this. It's magic. What do you mean? The technology box is just fairies. Like,
Yeah, it a lot of times it does feel like that magical black box. I think that's kind of what attracted me to it because I have that, you know, not as compelling as some of my contemporaries in the industry, but I have a little bit of that. I'd like to know how this works. Or I'd like
yeah,
to make it do the thing I want it to do. How do I get it to do the thing I want it to do? And sometimes it's ready made, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you got to build it yourself. Pretty good first tip. We'll
yeah.
bring you a different one of those every day. Hopefully you find something valuable out of that. But it's not always technical or always
It's
business.
not.
So Katie,
Yeah,
what do you got?
sometimes you need something different, and so
With apologies to Monty
I
Python, and now for something completely different.
yes, I am a fun fact keeper. I love a good fun fact. I love history. I'm a nerd in that regard. I love being that person that goes, "Did you know?" As much as they're really annoying at parties, is why I don't get invited to any. I'm just kidding.
You
But
get
now
invited
Olivia
to
does it.
plenty of parties.
Mostly just 6-year-old birthday parties right now. We're in that
Yeah,
phase of life.
yeah, I hear
Um,
that.
but so, but I still sometimes find technological tips and
Okay.
events that happen. So today we're going to be talking about the creation of Google Images.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So Google Images, you know, it's it's not what they originally started with. It started off with Google just kind of having their traditional like search query. It wasn't until 2000 and yeah, it's the year 2000 when they were like, "Oh, we should be taking a step to be able to allow people to find things by an image search." So the creation of Google Images is not directly caught. Oh my gosh, I can't. It's been so long since I've even done looked at this. Okay, I'm going to restart that a little bit. So, the creation of Google Images is not directly tied to Jennifer Lopez wearing the famous green dress, but there's an interesting story about how this event influenced the development of Google Images. So, I was not yet very conscious during the year 2000, but I do know that she showed up to a red carpet in a green Versace dress
That
that set the
green, yeah,
world.
that one with nothing in the middle.
Yeah, she's working
Yeah.
it. She's got it. It's looking good. So at the 42nd Grammy Awards in 2000, like she was there rocking it, and everyone wanted to see it afterwards, but people had no way to be able to find it outside of tabloid magazines. So Google kind of saw this happening in front of them, and they were like, "Oh, we should be able to fill this gap and fill this niche." And so at that time, they were primarily text based, and they wanted to pivot. So in response to this growing demand, Google developed and launched Google Images in July of 2001. Google Images allowed users to search specifically for images, making it easier to find the visual content on the internet, and it marked a significant step in the evolution of search engines. And now they're just everything is a search engine. Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
it's all just a big search engine. So while Jennifer Lopez and the green dress didn't directly lead to the creation, it served as a notable example of the increasing importance of visual content on the internet.
I had no idea that A, it was that long ago, but B, that the crazy green dress. Also, the crazy green dress was that long ago.
Oh
But
yeah.
that was kind of the inspiration for it was the fact that that drove. I can see that they would probably have a desire to do something like that right out of the gate. Just knowing a little bit about software development, like that, I can see
Yeah.
that being on the backlog of here's the things we want to build. But then some big crazy media thing like that. 'Cause, yeah, I remember that. Everybody was talking about that dress the next
Yeah.
day, and crazy. The fact that you remember a dress 20 some odd years later is
It's
pretty insane,
impactful.
right? It's like, wow, dude, J-Lo, what the heck?
Yeah.
Um, that they like just like, okay, this item on the backlog needs to come up to the top, and we need to start working on this like yesterday. I could totally see that.
Give the people what they want. And now it's so cool because I mean, I have used this before where you can take a image and put that into a search. So that way, you're not looking for an image, or the image itself is the search. And that allows for you to ensure that like there's not copyright infringements. It allows fact checking. You can figure
Oh,
out
nice.
where an image kind of comes from, because I know that's something that people will do. They'll take an image from 10 years ago and post it as if it's something that's happening today, and that can kind of pivot decisions based off of which direction and the company like copy that you're posting along with it. And sometimes that's beneficial, but sometimes that can have like really detrimental effects on like a cause. And so I really like the fact that it started from a pop culture thing, and now it is something that is entirely influential in a lot of people's lives without them even really being able to recognize it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. My wife and I were just out in the backyard last night looking at weeds. Like,
Oh
looking at
yeah.
plants. We go like, is that a weed or is that a good plant? Upload the
Yeah.
image. That's a good one. Leave that one alone. Oh, that's bush honeysuckle. Kill that with fire. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dig it
I
up.
have no dude. I have no idea. Not a green thumb at all. No, that's great. That's a good one. I like that. Did not know that that was how it came about. That's awesome.
The
All
green
right.
dress.
So we did kind of our main event. We did the tech tip of the week. We did it now for something completely different. What's next?
Next is the hack of the week.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So every week we want to talk a little bit about cybersecurity, but I don't want the talk to be just a nanny like don't reuse your passwords. I mean, like, so we'll give you advice like that for sure, but look at the news. Like, the news is always showing you some hack that's out there, and it goes to, like, Katie, what you said earlier about the black box, like the, hey, I
Yeah.
don't, we don't really understand how this works. Well, part of what I have to do is figure out how it works. And when you're dealing with cybersecurity, you're doing that because you're trying to figure out how to stop it, right? How to
Yes.
stop the attack in its tracks. So my goal for this is hopefully, like, to give you another defense that you can think about, but also to show you that this stuff isn't necessarily as complex as it seems. So this week, I'm going to bring some shame, but I'm not going to bring shame to any of our listeners here. I'm going to bring some shame
Okay.
to a company that got hacked. That would be 23andMe. So
Oh no.
yeah, so earlier this year, 23andMe got hacked, and a whole bunch of, DNA information got leaked out. Like 6.9 million people potentially
Oh,
uh,
good.
got out there. You want to talk about protected personal data, like extracting somebody's DNA. And, look, my wife has done this. I've been resistant about it, and she's been like
Hmm.
on me, like, do it. Don't you want to know? Like, 'cause they do. They offer a lot of cool insights about,
Yeah.
potential diseases you might get, or family history, where you came from. Lots of cool data that they'll get you. But I've always been kind of
Yeah.
hesitant because I'm like, dude, I don't know if I want them having that. Like,
My
not,
little DNA.
yeah, like, do you come and grab my water glass and get it off of there, or like find a hair I left behind, like do it CSI style or something.
Yeah, where's your
But
warrant?
yeah, exactly. Like, do you really need this? So obviously some people did it, and I can see why they did. It's cool. And some of the
Yeah.
stuff my wife has shown me is really cool, but they got hacked. And I don't know the technical detail of the 23andMe hack. I don't believe it's in here. I don't know if it's been fully disclosed, but
Hmm.
enough people really angry about the fact that, oh wow, my DNA information is now in the hands of cyber criminals, that they filed lawsuits. And 23andMe's response to that was basically like, well, you guys had crappy passwords,
That
right?
so they're putting the blame on the other people,
Yeah. Yeah, so
on the
the
users.
technical, I don't know if this is true, the technical part of the hack, but it's basically a technique called credential stuffing. And the idea of credential stuffing is basically simple. It's, you know, sites have breaches. You hear about them in the news all the time. As part of those breaches, the bad actors will get a list of users and passwords that access that site. What they'll do
Yeah.
is they'll take that username and password combination, and they'll go try logging in on other sites with that information. So if you
Hmm.
use the same password or variations of the same password on multiple different sites, and they have one of those, they're going to try it, and effectively they just log in as you,
Yeah.
um, because they have your password at that point. So it's an important thing that we do as part of our cybersecurity, is train people. Obviously, like I said, don't reuse passwords. Get good password hygiene. Use a password manager. Use multi-factor authentication. Do all these things, and it's part of my job to make sure the thousands of users we support all are doing that. Some are better at it than others, but we're constantly
Me,
trying
the
to. And yeah,
worst.
we'll get to me in a minute. Um, but that sort of thing. Okay, so what's the onus on 23andMe then, right? If So that you could argue that that's not even really a hack.
Yeah,
It's
because if it's just one user, then why would
right.
one user bring down the entire 6.9 million people?
Well, right, and that's why it's kind of interesting because they said, look, it only affected 14,000 accounts. And you think, all right, well, 14,000 accounts makes a little more sense with credential stuffing. It's still a lot, right?
Yeah,
But it's conceivably possible that it makes sense. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, 6.9 million users were affected by this feature. That
yeah,
doesn't feel like credential stuffing to me. That
no,
feels
it
like, are they really logging in as 7 million users with 7 million users breached passwords and getting, no, something else happened there. Yeah, but they doubled down like look, it's recycled login credentials, and that's kind of where they're going on it, and that's all they're really saying is that
yeah,
that just
that's
feels irresponsible in
shady.
this day and age. Like, honestly, if you're going to a website, let's just say we know something more happened there. It had to be. They're being dodgy about it, and it kind of makes sense they'd be dodgy about it because now they're under lawsuits, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
if you're getting sued, you just shut up because you're not going to give the court any more fodder. I've
No.
never been sued, and hopefully, knock on wood, I never will be. You know from watching Law and Order, doom, doom, that you shut up. So they're being dodgy and they're not talking anything more about it. But the initial, like, it's credential stuffing because basically they're saying, like, our people don't have good cyber hygiene, and they might be right, but it's also on them. If you're logging
Yeah,
into a website and that website does not offer you multi-factor authentication, that's a problem in 2024. That's a problem. And that's on them to fix. In fact,
yeah.
you really ought to be concerned about putting your data in there if they don't offer that, right?
Well, and if they're going to have one account be password stuffed or,
Mhm.
it's just a bad password, then on their system it's not set up right if then 6.9 million accounts can be
Oh, I
affected.
don't believe for a second that 6.9 million was credential stuffing. Something else
Yeah.
happened. And so maybe the initial thing of it was credential stuffing was also BS. Like their
Hmm.
initial evaluation of saying it was only 14,000 accounts and it was because of credential stuffing. The fact that, oh, hey, later on we find out, no, it was way bigger, tells me that that might have been wrong also. And it might have been a little bit of victim blaming.
Yeah.
Um,
23 and
so
me, 23 and a bunch of liars.
Oh
I'm
no, no, no slander. We're not
just
slandering.
kidding. I'm
Nobody
just kidding.
lied.
I'm kidding.
Allegedly, allegedly.
Yeah,
Let's not get
allegedly.
sued in the first episode, right? But no, so something, probably something happened. We'll probably never know exactly
Yeah.
what happened. But again, the tip for the lesson for everybody watching, again, watch where you're putting your data. The cloud is just somebody else's computer. All right,
Yeah.
so and you're ceding cybersecurity to them. You're hoping they do a better job of it than you can do. And in a lot of cases that's true, but in some cases it's not. And there's little hints to that. They don't offer a multi-factor authentication. If they do offer a multi-factor authentication, it's only with text messages. That's a problem because those can get breached. If they have a password requirement that limits the number of characters you can use. Like your password must be less than 20 characters. That's weak. If it's your
Yeah.
password must be 8 characters. Look, 8 character passwords are breached in 2 hours. No matter how
Oh
complex you make
gosh.
them, they're done in 2 hours. Everybody can crack them at this point. So, stuff like that should give you pause. Even the old rule of you have to change your password every 90 days. That's not a thing anymore. In fact, all that
Hmm.
does, even like you go to the FCC, that's not a thing anymore. The federal government is saying to you that's not a thing. Don't do that anymore because all it does is lead to creating bad passwords.
Yeah.
So create a good password. Anyway, we'll talk more on a future episode about my rules of passwords.
I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah, so we could do that some other day. But the key is trust but verify. Don't necessarily put all your trust in another company to do cybersecurity, right? Because that's what we've often found. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah. Everybody makes mistakes. Everyone has those days, in the great words of Hannah Montana / Miley Cyrus.
Don't know. I don't know what you're talking.
Here's the generational divide coming out.
I'm aware of the name, but I have no idea. I don't know a thing. Too funny.
Moving on from the hack of the week, later on, we're going to touch on the customer journey and what it takes and what it's like to be a Best Max customer. But we also want to offer this opportunity for other people to learn and have their questions answered. So we want to offer the space for people to ask questions, and we also want it to be a safe space to ask questions because everyone has a different background whenever it comes to their understanding of technology, cybersecurity, and the way that that should all flow together. And so we will have a segment each week called No Dumb Questions.
Yeah, because there's no dumb. The only dumb question is one that's not asked. And
Absolutely.
apologies to the Kelsey brothers for stealing No Dumb Questions as a title. Love you guys. But the
Great concept.
we'll put our email addresses where you can see them,
In the
and
show
feel,
notes.
yeah, the show notes, something like that. I'm pretty sure it's just first name at bestbetalking.com, but we'll put it in there. And you can email either of us. We'd love to get your questions. It's stump the chump, right?
Yeah.
See what you can, and maybe they're not technology based, maybe they're marketing based, maybe they're business based, whatever you want. Maybe they're completely something completely different.
Yeah.
Hit us with whatever you like. We'll take it and run with it. But for this week, because it's the first one, I just want to piggyback off of what we just did. Why should you care? Like, why should you care about cybersecurity? Somebody, I hear it all the time. I run an antivirus and I have a good password. What's the problem? And all my stuff's in the cloud. Well,
Right?
as you just heard, all your stuff in the cloud doesn't really help. People can breach your passwords, especially if you reuse them or if they're really easy to guess. And traditional antivirus doesn't really do much for you. It's not going to stop ransomware in most cases. So yeah, you should absolutely care. And even if you're kind of like, I don't have anything all that important, I don't do that anything anybody would really care about. I want to challenge that. Do you care about your data? So Katie, like, do you care about the data that's like in your Google Drive?
Absolutely.
Right. So would you pay money to get it back if somebody took it from you?
Yes, especially dependent on because, if they can access my work Google Drive, they probably can also access my personal Google Drive. And if there's information regarding my family and my financials and things of that nature on there, that is information that is very secure and close to me that I would want to keep.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's got stuff like that, right? And
Mhm.
so the bad guys, the cyber criminals, they're opportunistic and they don't care, And in fact, it's easier for them to attack folks like us than it is
Yeah.
to attack folks like big box retailers. So like we all heard about the incidents with like Target and Home Depot and Equifax. I mean, we these big ones that made news. Well, those
Yeah.
organizations have their hackles up. They don't want to be the next big news breach. 23andMe doesn't want to go through this again, right? So they're
Yeah.
probably spending gobs of money and throwing defenses against cyber attacks as best they can. So that's going to be like trying to go rob Fort Knox. So can you get
Mhm.
$10 million Fort Knox? Sure you can. But can you go get $10 million by getting a thousand, 10,000, 100,000 from a whole lot of other people who don't even have good passwords?
Probably.
Yeah. And so that's what they're doing. I mean, they're that's what they're doing, and they're getting really, really good at it. So should you care? Absolutely, because you have stuff that is important to you. They know that, and they'll use it to get money from you.
Yeah. And it's not even just your business. Like there are stories every day of especially elderly people getting hacked, having their entire life savings scammed out of them. And so if we can give any sort of information that is going to keep not only businesses safe, but also very vulnerable populations of people that might not understand that this is the way that these scammers and hackers are operating, then I think that is not only great, but it's just kind of like the due diligence. Like it will make an impact and hopefully save the next person from getting attacked.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The biggest thing is just I hate that elderly people get attacked by this as well, but it doesn't surprise me because again, stereotyping, but in general, they didn't grow up with technology like you did for sure. I got
Yeah.
it as a teenager or preteen effectively, but even people my generation, Gen Xers, are kind of hit or miss whether we're tech savvy or not.
Yeah.
But everybody younger than us grew up with it. But so, the boomers, a lot of people in my generation, it's that black box. I don't want to get you don't want everybody to start distrusting everything. Trust is a good thing, and distrusting
Yeah.
everything makes you paranoid and actually has the opposite effect. You don't want to be doing that. It's counterproductive. But just
Hmm.
take a beat. Like just stop for a minute. You see something that comes in before what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to act before you think. They're trying to
Yeah,
prey
out
on
of
your
fear.
emotions and get yeah, exactly, out of fear or something like you got to do this to like you get an email that says, "Hey, you just spent $600 at Best Buy."
And you're like,
Wait, what? I didn't spend $600 at Geek Squad. Click the link. That's what they're trying to get you to do. Just take a
yeah.
beat. Did you spend $600 at Best Buy? No, of course you didn't. But if you just can't delete it and shake it off, go look at your credit card statement or your bank account. Is there a $600 charge from Best Buy on there? No, there's not. That's it. That's all
Hmm.
you got to do.
Yeah.
Because the cyber criminals they need your help. Once they're
Hmm.
in, they don't want you to know they're there. But prior to that, they need your help and they're going to prey on your emotions. So just take a beat, stop and think about it.
Biggest thing, if the bank calls, hang up and call them back. That is
Oh,
the one tip I
I've
can
got
always give.
I have a hack of the week in the future you're gonna love right around that
Oh
topic.
no.
Oh man, wait till you see this thing. This is nuts. So we'll try not to scare you too much with hack of the week, but yeah, we do want you to know that this is super important. And this is why every, IT professional under the sun is talking about this topic right now because it's hot. I mean, this is not oh, your computer broke, which they do. This is bad guys are actively trying to victimize you. It's
Yeah.
and they're smart and they're getting better and better all the time. So, yeah, definitely you should care.
That is going to be all of the information that you are going to be able to look forward to if you continue to follow the journey of Best Be Talking. I really do hope that it will be insightful and impactful to people not only in the tech space, but additionally other small businesses and, anyone on a personal level. If you have any suggestions or questions or comments, you can always email us at the emails that will be listed in the show notes, like we kind of said before. If you have any hate mail, I ask that you direct it anywhere else because I'm sensitive and will cry. So don't do that.
Oh,
But
come on, haters. Good. If you don't
yeah,
have haters, you're doing something wrong. Like at this point,
I
quarter of the
I
world's
would
gonna hate you,
prefer.
quarter of the world's gonna love you, and the other half is just not gonna care. So, yep.
Well, then they can all go to Brian.
I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. He's better at deleting those things than I am.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you have any final words or last
I got
words?
no, I got one more for you. So listen,
Uh-oh.
you have a computer, you
I
have a
do.
business.
I
Like
do.
we should onboard you into the Best Max fleet. Like we should just do that. And I think it'd be actually really fun for everybody in the everybody who's watching. Maybe not fun, but get a picture of what it's like. This is what the customer journey should be like moving forward. So I mean, start at the beginning. Marketing obviously is trying to get people. I think the goal, Mr. Boehm kind of tells us the goal of marketing is to get people to raise their hand and say, "I'm interested."
Mhm.
You
Yes.
create what he calls a meaningful interaction. All right, somebody is interested in what they have seen from you, what you're putting out there on LinkedIn, what you're putting out there in email, all that, and they're interested and they want to talk. Okay. In that initial conversation, kind of transition to a sales motion, what you're trying to do, or at least what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to figure out, is this a good fit? And can I help
Hmm.
you? Somebody, a lot of times you hear the talk of what's your ideal customer. My ideal customer, besides some of the obvious things, obviously, if they use a Mac, great. Doesn't have to be. We have plenty of Windows devices we support and clients that use all Windows. That's a story for another day. But the biggest thing I'm really trying to figure out is how proactive are they? So, if we were on one of these sales calls, Katie, I would be like trying to say, if your computer is throwing an error every day, you read the error, you don't really get it, you hit the OK button, and it lets you get on with the rest of your day, but the next morning the error is back. How does that make you feel?
More annoyed than anything else because if I don't already know what it is, then I'm just like, okay, well, like obviously I can still operate and function with my computer even though this error is being thrown up. So why should I care? But I'm sure that you would go on to then tell me, be like, well, that error leaves you open to risk, and usually it's a patch of some sorts. But
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing I'm trying to get to is it something, I think we're all kind of, busy. We want to get on with our day. Okay,
Mhm.
fine, go away. What I'm trying to get to is, do you want to make that is exactly what you just said. Like, is this indicative of a bigger problem?
Yeah.
Is it valuable to you for somebody with expertise to look at that and say, yeah, this is no big deal, don't worry about it, or hey, yeah, I can make that go away.
Hmm.
Not necessarily paying an hourly fee for it, because your dishwasher makes a noise or a weird noise. Are you calling the Maytag guy to come out and deal with it? Maybe, maybe not. Probably when your dishes are dirty, that's when the Maytag guy's coming out. I don't want to be
Yeah.
the Maytag guy. I want to be, no disrespect to the Maytag guys. I don't want to be that. Like, we're more interested in getting in and solving problems while they're small and before they blow up in your face. So, somebody who sees the value in that. If somebody doesn't see the value in that, they're not going to be a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. So
So,
I'm
like you
always
mentioned.
open to that.
You mentioned patching, right? And we can talk about patching in a future episode also, but doing software updates, is that something you're doing frequently? Are you doing a lot of, you're on the smaller end, obviously, as right now a soloist with the plans to add employees down the road.
Hmm.
So you're kind of in that mode of you're doing everything, right?
Yeah.
You're DIYing the whole nine. As somebody who's DIYing it all, how do you feel about how well your stuff is working?
Not good because you never know what you don't
That's a
know.
surprise. Yeah.
Well, it's just the truth because like I like I said, like to me, the computer is still kind of that magic space of I don't quite understand how these things work, but I use it every day. And so I know that I am probably not doing things the safest and I'm probably not doing things the most effective way. I'm sure that there's, without putting myself as like a clear victim target, I know that there are things that I could do to keep myself safer. And I have experienced like hacks before and it sucks because like one of the ones that I experienced was like I lost my entire like old Facebook page. And that's like such a minor thing. Like I didn't lose money, but I did lose like the pictures that I've had building up from years. And some of those are pictures that I'm never going to be able to get back with like family members and friends and things of that nature. And so that's such a minuscule level, but it's still impactful. And that has put enough fear in me to not want that to happen again on a bigger level.
Yeah, it's that's kind of, again, in those initial conversations, something like that is something I'm trying to figure out, because then you're going to get it. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of people that I'll talk with, that, for lack of a better word, I have to disqualify because
Yeah.
they're just not going to see the value in what we're doing. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't. I have an old history teacher who used to say they have to burn to make them learn. And I hate that that's true, but yeah, the people who kind of understand it have dealt with data loss because of something not configured properly or not being backed up. They've experienced long periods of downtime because of a technical issue that could have been fixed while it was small. They've experienced, you know, a hack or a ransomware or, you know, some kind of cyber security event that they're like, no, I don't want to experience that again. And that could have been much, 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 much worse if
Yeah.
it was something else. So, you know, having that understanding, I think, helps set the foundation for the value that we're going to provide. Maybe next time we'll talk about the next step that I would do with a client is we put together what I call the B plan. So maybe the next
Hmm.
episode I'll show you what that looks like, and we can kind of continue the journey week by week from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
giving people a taste of what they can expect, and maybe that'll allow business owners to be more prepared on onboarding
Well,
and what they need to expect from an IT company.
and you know, even if it's not just me, you know, obviously I have my recipe for doing this sort of stuff, but up on our website we've got a little book about what to look for in an IT service provider, what you want. It's a
Yeah.
fairly detailed, agnostic. Obviously, we adhere to the things that are in the book, but if it's not just me, you're welcome to take that and vet anybody who you'd be looking for help for on your IT stuff. So you're welcome to go up there, free download. I don't even ask for your email address. Just go ahead and download it and grab it. Or
Yeah.
email us here. We'll send you a copy. No strings attached.
We're here about transparency and information here, so it doesn't make sense to gatekeep or keep some information that would be useful to someone.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I think that is going to do it for this first episode of the show. So, Katie,
Yeah.
thanks for doing this, and for also for partly talking me into it. Because yeah,
Forcing.
this has been a forcing. No forcing. But no, this was fun. I'm glad we did it. I hope everybody found it enjoyable. I'll look forward to doing it again. We'll try to get these out once a week. See how we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the meantime, you have been listening to Best Be Talking, and so I hope you have the best day ever.
Yeah, have the best day ever. Me, I will. All right,
Yeah.
see y'all later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.